Shootbox Brass Band, let's go. Hey.
As the Gulf Coast recovers from all the rebelling and the good times we had during the 2025 Mardi Gras season, we wanted to tell you about a murder that happened in 2020. Without further ado, let us take you back to Mobile, Alabama, a time of celebration, laughter, and beads flying through the air. But on the night of February 24th, 2020, the joyful echoes of parade revelry were shattered by gunfire. A deadly act of jealousy and rage turned a night of festivity into a night of tragedy. This is the story of Anthony Orr, a man consumed by anger, a fatal encounter in an intersection, and the irreversible consequences of one fateful decision.
Well, obviously, there are a lot of people on the streets, and they're concerned about what's happened. You don't have a lot of rumors, and you don't hear exactly what has happened. So I thought it's very important to come let the parade goers know that things are safe downtown. This appears to be a domestic related. Everything points to that. I would say this, that we have been focusing on domestic related violence in the last 4 or 5 months, really trying to come up with a robust plan to deal with it. This altercation probably started last night based on the information we have. There are other people that knew that there was a threat to kill the deceased. So it would have been very helpful if somebody had reached out to us, and maybe somebody had, but we haven't been able to confirm that. But if you know that somebody's been threatened with their life, and you know there's a history of violence, you've got to tell us if you expect us to do something about it. So we would just encourage you to do that. But for all of our parade goers, I mean, you see the number of police that are on the streets, you see them on horses, you see them on motorcycles, segways. I mean, we are saturating and have been saturating the downtown.
What would you like to say to those thousands of people that will be coming down here tomorrow for the big day, Fat Tuesday?
Well, if anything, because of this situation, there's a heightened awareness on our part that we can't let our guard down. We're coming into the last day of Mardi Gras, and so that's when things can happen that you don't expect to happen. But we have got everything that we have out there trying to make sure that everybody's safe.
What would you like to say?
I would be remiss if I didn't say, how does your heart not break for those that have been shot? I mean, the deceased and the victim that's in the hospital right now. And so we would encourage everybody to pray for her and help us to find this guy that did the shooting.
One question for the chief. Is it strictly the one suspect, or are you worried there might be other people involved, other relatives? Sometimes there's a cycle of retribution that kicks in cases like this.
Well, in relationship to this particular incident, we believe there's one shooter. But I will speak to the ideal of the retribution that we always think about, and our goal is this: is as family members to allow us to do our job, allow us to take Mr. Orr into custody. We've identified who he is. I'm sure that you guys by now have placed his face out to the media and to the market, and if we can make sure that anyone that has any personal contact with him will notify us, we'll be able to get him off the street quickly, and we won't have to worry about him being out there, and we won't even have to worry about retribution, because our goal is to make sure we hold him accountable, and so that the people that are coming down here to enjoy Mardi Gras can safely do it without worrying about whether or not he's out.
Can you tell us how the black truck that had crime tape on it, I believe that's still there, how that was involved, and do you guys know how he left the scene at all?
So we don't know how he left the scene at this point, but again, the black truck, when we have an incident occur, we typically will rope off an area big enough so that we can make sure that we've gathered all evidence that may be available in relationship to that particular incident. So again, we would just ask you guys to continue to work with us, help us get the information out there, and if anyone calls you guys directly, pass that information along to us immediately so that we can take them into custody. So thank you guys for what you guys have done in getting the information out there for us. And if we can give you guys any more information before we leave or tomorrow, we'll update you guys at that point.
Chief, is Orr believed to be armed and dangerous? Do people need to watch out if they do see him?
Well, obviously, you should consider him to be armed and dangerous. He just killed one person and another person in the hospital. So we did not recover his weapon on the scene. So yes, we need to consider him armed and dangerous.
Mobile, Alabama, is home to the original American Mardi Gras, a tradition spanning over 300 years. It's a time when the city comes alive with parades, music, and a sea of revelers dressed in festive colors. But as we've seen time and time again, even the most joyous events can become the backdrop for the darkest crimes.
Anthony Orr, a 47-year-old man, wasn't a name widely known before that night. By all accounts, he lived a relatively quiet life. But behind closed doors, a storm had been brewing. A storm fueled by resentment, heartbreak, and a refusal to let go of the past. Orr had been married to Valerie Reed, but their relationship had run its course. In the divorce complaint, Valerie said Anthony had been verbally, emotionally, and physically abusive toward her and made several threats to kill her. She had obtained a protection from abuse order against Orr. Divorce is hard for anyone, but for Anthony, it was something he just couldn't accept. And that refusal led to deadly consequences.
On February 18, 2020, Orr was arrested for domestic violence and harassment charges from a complaint made by Reed stemming from the confrontations that started in October 2019. According to court records, he was released on bond February 21st, and 3 days later, on February 24th, 2020, Valerie was moving on with her life. That night, she attended the Infant Mystics and Order of Doves parade with someone new, Eldred Hall, a man who had entered her life after the divorce. They were enjoying the festivities, laughing, and taking in the atmosphere, unaware that someone was watching, waiting, that someone was Anthony Orr.
As the parade is getting ready to begin, Valerie and Eldred were parking near the parade route at the intersection of North Warren and St. Anthony Streets. They had no idea that Anthony had followed them. In a matter of seconds, celebration turned into chaos. Orr, armed with a gun and fueled by jealousy, opened fire into a car that was occupied by Hall, Reed, and a third person. Multiple shots rang out in the night. Eldred Hall was struck and slumped over in his seat. Valerie was shot, wounded, but alive. And just like that, a night of joy had become a crime scene.
Police arrived quickly at the horrific scene, sirens blaring, lights flashing. Witnesses described the terrifying moment shots rang out, sending bystanders running for cover. Valerie, bleeding but alive, was rushed to the hospital. Eldred was pronounced dead at the scene.
As the details of the case unfolded, it became clear. This was not a crime of passion, it was premeditated. Investigators uncovered evidence that Orr had been stalking Valerie, tracking her movements, obsessing over her new relationship. Orr made public threats against the two victims and obtained a gun the day prior to the shooting. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who couldn't stand losing control. He wasn't just angry, he was determined to make her suffer.
During the trial, paralyzed Valerie took the stand, a survivor of both the attack and the trauma that followed. She spoke about the fear, the pain, and the loss of Eldred Hall, a man who had done nothing wrong but fall in love with the wrong woman, at least in Anthony Orr's eyes. The jury didn't take long to deliberate. The verdict: guilty of murder, attempted murder, first-degree assault, and shooting into an occupied vehicle. Judge Vicki Davis sentenced Anthony to life in prison. But for Valerie and Eldred's loved ones, the pain of that night will never fade.
Jury delivering that verdict to a Sims man today. Anthony Orr convicted of shooting and paralyzing his ex-wife and killing her boyfriend during Mardi Gras in 2020.
Our Shelby Myers in the studio with the very latest. And Shelby, Orr also convicted of 3 other crimes, right?
Yeah, that's right, Lenny's and Byron. It only took a jury 40 minutes to find Anthony Orr guilty of murder, attempted murder, assault first, and shooting into an occupied vehicle. Prosecutors say it happened at North Warren and St. Anthony Streets after a Mardi Gras parade in 2020. Orr shot into a car with 3 people inside. He killed Eldred Hall and permanently paralyzed his ex-wife, Valerie Reed. Investigators say a third person was also in the car but was not injured. Orr was picked up just days after the crime. This is him on his way to Metro in 2020.
They say you're accused of shooting your ex-wife and killing her boyfriend. Did you want to say anything?
And during that time, he did not want to say anything. During the trial, prosecutors say Orr was on bond for domestic violence against Reed just a week before when he shot her and her boyfriend, killed her boyfriend. Orr was not supposed to even have a gun because he was a convicted felon. Court records show Orr and Reed separated in 2018 after he punched her in the face. Orr will be sentenced October 5th. In the studio tonight, Shelby Myers, Fox 10 News.
Anthony Orr's story is one of obsession, unchecked emotions, and the ultimate act of control. It's a tragic reminder that domestic violence doesn't always end when a relationship does. If you or someone you know is in a situation where control and jealousy have turned into threats, please seek help. There are resources available and lives can be saved.
One night, one gun, one irreversible act, a love story turned fatal, a celebration turned crime scene. The tragic tale of Anthony Orr is one that reminds us how quickly emotions can escalate into violence, and in the end, no one truly wins. Thank you for watching. If you find this case compelling, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop your suggestions. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.
Mobile, jukebox brass band, let's go. Hey. Oh, city.